Hi everyone and welcome. I am Chaitanya. You're watching Chai with Chaitanya. This is a place where I talk about books, movies, and fandom. And today I'm talking about all the books that I read in Feb 2021. So be sure to go ahead and check that out and get to know about each of the books that I happen to read and what did I feel about them. So let's go. First up, if you're new here, I would really appreciate if you could go down below and hit the subscribe button. I'm still trying to grow and it's just very difficult on YouTube for some reason. So I'm just trying to, put out as many content as I can and just trying to get to as many people as I can. So I would really appreciate if you would do that. Otherwise, it's all fine. And let's just go ahead and get on with this video. So now I read 14 books in Feb 2021. And if you know me, then that is a lot of books for me because I don't read that fast. And I definitely wouldn't have been able to read so many books if I wouldn't have included some audiobooks on my TBR and also some ebooks. So I'm going to quickly go ahead and talk a little bit about each of these books. I'm going to try to keep this video as short as possible and as crisp as possible. So let's get started and jump right into it. Now, first up, I have the first book that I read in Feb. That is purely by coincidence and not by the way I read them. So I read Captive Prince by C.S. Pacat. This was one of my most anticipated reads, and I have a very detailed video talking about this. So I'm going to leave it up on the screen somewhere and also down in the description box, so you guys can go ahead and check that video out where I talk about what I feel about this book. And I know for a fact that this is a very polarizing read and a lot of people feel very strongly about it. They either just tend to love it or they hate it. I just happened to be on the side which sort of loved it. I mean, I definitely like the book. I'm not sure if I can call myself to an extent where I loved this book, but I definitely enjoyed it. And I have already ordered the second and the third book. The second book has already reached me and it's on my March TBRs. Up, I have The Forbidden Trouble by Travis Casey. This book was sent in generously by the author himself. And even though this isn't like a new release, this is an old release, but I happened to read his latest book, which released last year in 2020 called No Halo Required. And I enjoyed myself thoroughly, so he went ahead and sent in this book as well for review. So this is an enemies to lovers and it's set on ships. I know for a fact that Travis is also probably an ex-Navy person, so the details in here are very well done. And the thing with Travis Casey's writing is that you get to meet characters who are very cocky, who are very arrogant, who are just anything but likable. And somehow by the end of the book, you get to, by the time the resolution comes in, you also make up your mind about how you feel about that character. And usually there is a gradual but a very very drastic change by the end of the book, which is why I enjoyed the first book and which is why I also enjoyed the second book so much. Because when you first meet the main protagonist, which is Tyler, you do not really like him a lot because he's just arrogant and cocky and just being the typical male that you expect males to be. And then you have the woman that comes into the power and into the picture, whose name I'm forgetting is Starlight, and sorry if that's the wrong pronunciation. And you get to see how their romance bubbles after a series of events. And because this book is set on a ship, and I haven't read any book set on ships, so the setting was fairly new and I really enjoyed myself. I never knew that I would actually ever read a book that is set on a ship, but I definitely did enjoy myself to an extent where I would look forward to reading more books set on ship, because it just provided for a very different sort of environment which I was not used to and which I never knew that I would enjoy so much. I gave this book a 4 stars because I really enjoyed it. Also, if you want to check out my review for No Halo Required, which was based on racism and class struggle, but also romance was a part of it, that book as well, then you can go ahead and check that out in my description box below. Now next up, I have Me, My Dad, and At the End of the Rainbow by Benjamin Dean. This was a review copy that was sent in by Simon and Schuster, and I have a detailed review coming in just 3 to 4 days from now, so be sure to check that review out. But overall, if I have to give you my opinion, then this book felt really similar in terms of the vibes that it gave to House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. And I know for a fact that this is a middle grade novel, but I still think that this book would appeal and would be enjoyed by every single person out there who enjoys reading a good story and a story that has a good intent at heart, and this is just that. So there is absolutely no reason why you should not be checking this book out. So go ahead and pick this one up. Now, next up, I read an advanced reviews copy for Anuradha D. Rajurkar's debut novel, American Betiya, and I enjoyed myself thoroughly. I read this book for the book tour that I am hosting on my Bookstagram as well as on my blog for this book tour company called Here Are Voices, and they are amazing. I would be linking them down in the description box below, so be sure to go ahead and check them out. And I enjoyed myself so much that I ended up making a separate video talking about this book, so I would be leaving that down in the description box and also up somewhere on the screen, so you guys can go ahead and check that video out as well. But overall, if you are an international reader who is watching this video right now, so be sure to pick American Betiya up, because it would really be a great place to start to understand brown culture, because it has Indian representation in it. And also, if you happen to be Indian or South Asian who's watching this, then you would definitely enjoy reading a book that is about brown culture, and it just puts brown people at center, and it talks a lot about family and about being an immigrant in the States, and how the cultural differences play a great role in the lives, and how you behave and how you mold yourself and how you see the world in general. Next up, I heard an audiobook which is called Lock and West by Alexandra C. Eberhart. I have no clue about this book, and I just went in and saw the title and read the synopsis and found it interesting, so which is why I went ahead with my decision to hear this book, and I did not regret this decision at all, because this book was really great. And I don't know why people don't know about this book, because it is actually really great, and it's better than a lot of other LGBTQIA plus book that is out there in the market. And I think that such books are the books that deserve more love. So this book, we follow two young boys called Locke and West, who are also on the title, and you get to see them in alternating chapters, and you get to see that both these boys are dealing with a lot in their respective lives, and they're just trying to make the sense of the world, which is very difficult. And both these boys are dealing with a lot of things at their respective ends, and the kind of things that they're dealing with are also very triggering, which some of which include death of a loved one, addiction, gambling, hospital, blood, suicide, self-harm, anorexia or bulimia, I'm not sure, but the one in which you do not want to eat, like basically body distortion issues, and you have cheating and manipulation and rape. So there is a lot of trigger warnings in this book, so it's definitely not an easy read. So if you're somebody who struggles with any of these topics, then I would really ask you to go into this book very informed, so that you are not caught off guard. But otherwise, this was a very beautiful read, and I thought that this book isn't about the love that happens between these two people, but it's more about how these two people sort of get into their own conclusion and own resolution by the end of this book. And with that conclusion and the resolution that they find by the end of the book, they also happen to grow closer together and see that they have a potential and see that they have a future, and the fact that they love each other and just move ahead in a very beautiful way. So I would totally recommend this, but again, as I said, it's not for everyone, so be sure to read a couple of reviews, at least non-spoilery ones, and then go ahead and then only pick this book up. Next up, I have 3 books which are basically the part of the same series, which is A Coat of Thorns and Roses, and I read all these 3 books in Feb alone. And for those of you who would know, I started my journey with A Coat of Thorns and Roses in December last year, and I read the first book in December, and then the second book, which is A Coat of Mist and Fury, in January. I have reviews for both the first and the second book. I would be linking them down in the description box, as well as leaving them up on the screen, so you guys can go ahead and check that out. I happen to enjoy the third book the most in this series, and A Coat of Wings and Ruin is definitely my favorite book in the ACOTAR series by far, because I felt that this book was very action-packed and that no place in this book felt dull or unnecessary, and the characters were well fleshed out, and you get to meet almost every single High Lord of each of the 7 courts, and that was something that I was really looking forward to. And each of these 7 High Lords are so different from one another, and you get to see them, all of them at one place, and they're all of them interacting, and there's just so much scope for drama, and Sarah J. Maas has just not let that drama go to waste. She has capitalized on every single one of them, and also that the way the entire story comes together at the end is also very interesting, and all the plot elements that were done in this book is also by far, compared to the whole series, also done really well. And I think that this book is also something that I really enjoyed, because it was less on romance and more on the action and more on the story, versus what other books have been so far in the series. Next up, I'm going to talk about A Court of Frost and Starlight. This is, as I said, it's a short novella which bridges the gap between these two books. Ouch, sorry. Okay. No, it did not fall. I can't let my books fall. So now this book is exactly what it aims to be. So this is about what happened after the war at the Night Court and in Valaris. So you get to see how all of these people are still coming in terms with the after effects of war. And much like the human world, obviously when there is a war, there is not only loss of land and destruction, but there's also the loss of human life, in this case the Fae life and the Illyrian life. So families have been destroyed and people are still dealing with PTSD. Feyre and much of the Night Court is dealing with PTSD. So is Tamlin, but nobody cares about him. I don't know why. But anyway, so I gave this book, I forgot to mention, I gave this book a 4.5 star, which is the highest in the ACOTAR series. And I gave A Court of Frost and Starlight 2 stars because I did enjoy the fact that there were snowball fights with Rhys, Azriel and Cassian, and also to appreciate the genuine effort that Feyre tries to put in by painting and starting a painting class for kids and for everybody who just wants to try and get back to their own life and deal with whatever they think is broken or missing or just messed up with art. So I think that was really good. But beyond that, this book just felt like a big letdown because of the fact that you just get to see Illyrian people and the Night Court, and I think a part of that is true because and I can't complain because the story is very pro Night Court and pro Illyrian, but again the losses happen everywhere, and while a little bit of it is touched upon, but most of it is missing, and I did not enjoy that because I was looking forward to more of what happened respectively in Prithian. Also for the fact that Tamlin in this book is in an extremely messed up place. He's definitely dealing with severe depression, and I don't care what your opinion is about Tamlin, whether you choose to forgive him, whether you choose to feel that he deserves a redemption arc or not, or whatever your opinion is, but I would definitely want to make this very clear that what Rhysand does at Springcourt when he goes to see him for the first time and the way he belittles that person who's already completely broken and just almost wants to die, I don't really see that as a good thing, no matter how much you have problems with the person. And when you see clearly that the person is already suffering, I think the least that you can do is to let that person suffer alone and not make it even more worse. I have a lot to say because again I did not really enjoy it as much. So yes. Now next up I have the thickest book that is there in this series, which is A Court of Silver Flames. Now I read this book in 3 days, and I got it one day later to the release date, which is on 17th of Feb. The book released on 16th of Feb, and I have a extremely detailed video which is both non-spoiler and spoiler, and I will be linking that down in the description box and leaving that up on the screen so you guys can go ahead and check it out. I also have a reading vlog for it, not exactly a reading vlog, but it's just a vlog that I did, that how I got this book and my trials and tribulations of getting A Court of Silver Flames. Now I had a lot of expectations when it came to this book, but I don't know how I feel about it because I did give it a 3.7 stars because I was not sure where to give it between 3.5 stars to a 4 stars, but I ended up giving it a 3.7 stars. But I am still not very sure even if it deserves 3.7 stars or not. Maybe it just deserves a 3.5 stars. So the book is about Nesta and Cassian, as most of you would know, but then it is just about that. There is no plot, at least that is what I felt, and whatever little plot that it has, without spoiling, I think that it's not good enough, and whatever is in here is already seen. It's already been done in these original 4 books or 3 books trilogy, and I mean I'm not considering the novella. And Feyre has already done most of these things, and yes, Feyre and Nesta are 2 very different people, but again, the kind of things and the events that they have to go through are very similar. The Nesta and Cassian romance is really good, and there's a lot of sex if that is what you're looking forward to, but apart from that, it's not amazing. And again, there was a consistent lack of the other courts in this book, and I do not really see where this series is going. I mean, I can figure out 10 different leads as to where it might head, but none of these leads are interesting enough. There are 2 new characters that have been introduced in here, which is Emery and Gwen. I like them both to an extent for the fact that they were new characters, but beyond that I did not really connect a lot with them, and not that I did not wanted to connect with them, it's just because of the fact that I was expecting the older characters who have a lot to offer to go somewhere in the story, but the stories just stayed where they were in this book specifically, not even this one. And And that's about it. I don't know where Sarah J. Maas is trying to take us with this book, but I'm not very happy with this book. Next up, I read another advanced reviews copy for Louisa On. I'm not sure of how to pronounce the author's last name, but I'm sorry. Louisa On's Like Home, and this was a book that again I read for Hear Our Voices book tour company, and I am hosting a tour. I think by the time this video goes up, I would already have my creatives up, so you guys can go ahead and check that out. It would again be down in the description box below. And I definitely did not know going into this book that what exactly this book is about, because from the cover, as you can see over here, you feel that this is about a love story, probably because there are 4 people and just interacting, or about friendship or something of that sort, and it's categorized as YA, but it's not exactly all of this. It's about home, and it's about how vandalism affects your home, and how community is built, and how neighborhood works. And I'm not sure if I really enjoyed this book, even though I gave it like a 3.5 stars, but it's not the kind of book that I would normally pick up. And again, it's a book that I enjoyed to an extent where, to the fact that it was new and something different. But if you ask me that if I love it, then the short answer would be no. The characters were interesting and the plot was also there, like, don't take me wrong, but it's just for the fact that I do not really read mysteries, and this book had that whole mystery element to it, where you have to find out that why certain people's home or home/store got destroyed, and who was behind it, and why did he do it, and you just go from there. Now, this is a book that has Nigerian people in it. It has American Nigerian representation. I do not happen to be either of those representation, but I still connected with the core emotions. And it's to say that the book is not bad. The book is just not for me. Now, next up, I heard another audiobook on my Audible, which is Looking for Ty by Samantha and King. Again, I had no clue about this book. I was just scrolling through my Goodreads account and I came across this book, and I read a couple of reviews and found it to be interesting, so I just went ahead and picked it up. It was a short read, only 7 or 8 hours long, the whole duration was, and I listened to it at a greater speed than normal, so I finished it even faster. And this book has this whole friends to lovers trope that is going on in here, and it's definitely not for young adults or new adults. This is definitely a contemporary adult romance and an LGBTQIA romance. So you have Ty and Landon, who are sort of best friends, and both of these people feel something for one another, but none of these people really verbalize it or try to make a move on it until one day they just happen to hook up. And when they hook up, they're very awkward around each other before the hookup and even after the hookup. And the whole dynamic of being in love with your best friend is explored really well, because you see that how both of these people are scared of destroying the relationship, and how it would affect them if either of these two people do not want to take the friends to lovers space. And I think that was done really great. And next up, I read a very different sort of a read, which I would normally never pick up. It was a collection of poems with a collection of photographs by the same person, and it's more like a coffee table book, and it's by Elie and Azar. I hope the pronunciation is again right, sorry if it isn't. And I read this book in about 3 days, even though it's not that long. But again, I'm not a person who reads a lot of poetry, and it takes me a little time to actually understand what is happening. And even though these poetries that the author has written, the poet has written, is not that that difficult, it's not something which would keep you up all night trying to think about what the hidden meaning is. It's very simple, it's very straightforward, but it has a lot of essence. And I think that is what the beauty of it is, that it's simple and yet it's effective. Also, the photographs that he has taken and he's attached with each of these poems also have a specific meaning to them. And even if there isn't any meaning, when you are reading it, and as an audience or as a reader, when you read the poem and when you see a visual picture, you anyway sort of try to draw a story for it. And I think that happens. I read a book which was on my wish list since forever, and that is Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. This is volume 1, and I was only able to get to volume 1 because volume 2 and volume 3 aren't very readily available in India for some reason, and if they are super expensive, so I can't really spend all my money on reading graphic novels because I have to spend it on other books as well. So I'm gonna get them in a while. So even though I could have gone ahead and read it on digital, because Urvi, my friend, had already sent me the digital copy of this book and also of the volume 2 and volume 3, but I just wanted to read this in physical because just to smell it and see the illustrations for myself in my own hand. And The book is fairly simple. The story is not that complex or anything, which is why it again it this the simplicity is what makes the story special and so cute and so adorable. This is again one of the most adorable books that I've ever read. I heard another audiobook, but this time on Scribbles. It's called The Upside of Falling by Alex Light. Now this book was on my wish list on Amazon since forever. It still is, because I loved the audiobook so much, I love the story so much, that I have to go ahead and get myself the physical copy because I want this book up on my shelf. So here we meet and follow Becca and Brett. So now Becca is a girl who loves to read, and she's definitely a bookworm, and she's also trying to come in terms with the fact that her father left her and her mother to start a new family. And on the other hand, we have Brett, who is the soccer captain, and he's really famous, and he comes from a family which is picture perfect, and they just feel too perfect to be real. But again, there are things that even he is dealing with. And now both these people are in the same school, and they somehow find themselves in a situation where they start fake dating each other. So there's definitely the fake dating trope, and there's obviously the jock and the nerd trope, and both these tropes are done really well. In fact, the whole book is done really well. And now finally, the 14th book that I heard on Audible was The Raven King, which is the second book in All for the Game trilogy by Nora Sakawick. And I had heard the first book in January, and I enjoyed this book way more than the first book, which is the Foxhole Court. And that is probably because of the fact that, in this book you already know who the characters are, and because there are so many characters, and probably a part of the reason why I had problems with getting to know each of these characters is because the audio actor who was narrating this book was only one person who was trying to do all these different voices, and because there are so many characters, it just felt same, and I was confused between who is who and what is the backstory of each of these persons. But by now, by the second book, I think I have fairly made my way and understood who each of these characters are and what their backstories are. So I enjoyed this book way more, and I don't really have any strong feeling or any sort of particular feeling about this this trilogy as a whole, because I don't know how I feel about it as of now at this point of time. So I'm gonna give myself enough time to see what I think at the end of the third book. That brings me to the conclusion of this video. I hope that this was as quick and as informative as I wanted it to be, and if you have made it so far, then please go ahead and hit the subscribe button, because it's really going to help me, and also on the like button, which would be down there on your screen. And I will be meeting you very soon with another review, and till then, keep reading and keep watching. Bye.